Remember when House Republican leadership told their members not to do town halls? Well, North Carolina's Chuck Edwards didn't listen, and he got an earful.
I happen to believe very much that President Trump supports our Constitution.
And that was just one of the more tame moments, by the way, because things quickly went off the rails. CNN's Isabel Rosales was in the room for all of it. Isabel?
It was a packed house inside, the auditorium reaching a max capacity of 300 people. But there were several hundred others here outside that were waiting for hours to get in, only to be turned away. So loud at times that you could hear them from inside of the town hall. The questions ranged from everything from Ukraine to DOGE, the federal workers that have been fired. That certainly struck a nerve. Many of those jobs held by veterans. The congressman pressed time and time again about those cuts that many of his constituents were worried could impact Hurricane Helene recovery efforts. Then there was this heated exchange from a man who identified himself as a veteran shortly after the town hall began. Listen.
You're lying. I'm a veteran. You don't give a about me.
And right after the town hall, the congressman took questions from reporters, and just feet away, this moment of people pounding on the glass doors, shouting "shame on you" and other chants, extremely loud, yelling, wanting their voices to be heard. But I did also hear from other constituents saying thank you to Congressman Edwards for even holding an in-person town hall to begin with. Laura.
Isabel, thank you so much. I want to bring in CNN analyst and New York Times White House correspondent Zolan Cano-Youngs, former senior advisor of the Trump presidential campaign, Brian Lanza, and former special assistant to President Biden, Michael LaRosa. Thank you all for being here. I'll begin with you, Zolan, because we know the president has paid attention in the past, particularly when it comes to veterans. Will this resonate with him?
I mean, we'll have to see. I think for the White House right now, it's not going to be an individual town hall, but more so what that represents broadly. Now, I do think what could resonate is right now, I believe it was a CNN poll that found this week that the perception of Trump's handling, that the approval rating of Trump's handling of the economy essentially mirrors his overall approval rating right now, about 44-45%. That's a difference from the first term. In the first term, when he came into office, consistently, the approval rating of his handling of the economy was higher than his overall approval rating. I say that, and I connect it to this event, because when you have economic frustration, you have to wonder if the patience will start to lower for some of the actions that we're seeing in Washington. We've mentioned often that this upending of the federal bureaucracy does not just impact people in D.C., but people jobs throughout the country. You add that to economic frustration, potentially, it's early, higher consumer prices as you see more tariffs, well, then will you start to see more examples of town halls like this?
Well, Republicans have been told not to do these sort of town halls. I don't know if that's the solution to kind of cover your ears to what's happening, but what do you make of an evening like that where they're obviously hearing it from people about their frustrations?
Listen, town halls are tough, and Republicans should hear it, and they should hold it. I mean, they should get in front of as many people and make their case. I mean, President Trump made his case in November of why he should get elected. He wanted to shrink government. He wanted to focus on the economy. He wanted to end the war. You know, he is doing those things. The things that he's doing are defensible. He can actually talk about what the progress they're making with respect to these things. He has to have these conversations, and the best line of defense is going to be those House members that are doing those. So I think it's a disservice that we're asking them not to do it. I think they need to get there. They need to prep, and they need to have the smart questions. But I also think the theatrics plays into our hands. You know, the veterans, you know, he has a strong voice. He should say something. But he has to be respectful in this conversation, because the vast majority of the people in town halls are respectful. And we've seen over the years it's gotten this disrespectful tone. And it actually helps President Trump. That's what I think. And, you know, I think you have to answer the tough questions. And the reality is you're right. The CNN poll earlier this week, or last week, I think it showed that people didn't, people had less confidence in President Trump with respect to consumer prices. What did we see this week? We saw inflation's now going down. We saw the prices of gas and eggs go down. So, I mean, you can't measure it week after week. You have to measure it month for month. And in 1 month's time, President Trump, we've seen him now drop the prices of eggs. We've seen the gas prices go down. Those are good things.
I mean, interesting enough, to ask some of the people in these town halls to be respectful, I understand the premise, but they feel as though they are not just being disrespected, that they are being actively harmed. They're speaking out at these town halls. Democrats, I know now, are thinking about holding their own town halls in Republican areas to be able to hear this. Is that the right way to react to this and perhaps seize on it?
Well, I saw Governor Walz is doing something similar to that in Minnesota. I would actually agree with Brian, actually, on the response that the congressman had in terms of holding these town halls. I think it's the right thing to do. You know, Democrats can learn lessons from this. You don't retreat when you're under attack, right? You have to, as James Carville once said, or Bill Clinton once said, actually, you have to run into the fire. As Democrats, when it comes to the press, we run away from the fire. We've been doing that a lot for the last couple of years. We have to run into it. And so...
Why do they run away?
Well, there is a culture in the Democratic Party right now that has treated the press as a hazard instead of an opportunity. And I didn't always agree with that approach, but that was the approach that the Biden White House took, and the Biden campaign took all the time. I never understood it. I came from television, so my instinct is to always engage. But too many staffers, too many strategists in our party are too fearful, too skeptical, and treat the press with suspicion, which doesn't engender the trust you need on both sides to get the job done, and it doesn't help Democrats sell their message.
It's been more than just press caution with the press, too, when it comes to Democrats. It also seems like there's an intentional strategy right now by Democrats up until this point to be really, really cautious about choosing what to swing at when it comes to the Trump administration.
Well, they're swinging at tariffs right now, and that's one area that I think they believe they're going to be successful in. But you heard Trump already saying that he is not backing down on this issue, even though he's been accused of giving everyone whiplash on this very issue.
It's the perfect example of what Carville wrote about in the New York Times. Play dead, right? Get out of his way. The events.
Well, that's different. That's different things. Playing dead and getting out of his way are different things.
Staying out of his way, meaning you don't need any, we don't need to do protests at these federal agencies. We don't the events will be the wind that we need at our backs going into the midterms. The midterms is the long game because in order to govern, you have to win elections. In order to win elections, you have to focus on winning and not trying to win the argument all the time. And Democrats are too focused on trying to be right. No, we got to try to win the election. All right. So allow these these frontliners on the DCCC in the marginal districts. Let them off the hook. Let them vote with Republicans occasionally. Let's focus on. We're going to take back the House. There's only a 2-seat deficit. We just can't screw it up. But that is why we need to focus on.
I mean, that's a high order for some. I mean, times to think about that, given what's happened recently.
It is, but we did gain 2 seats in this last election. The margins are so close. Republicans need Democrats because Democrats are in better shape than people realize when it comes to money, infrastructure, recruitment. Now it's going to be, can we leverage the events like tariffs? Can we use that to our advantage? Because it's very unpopular.
Brian, what's the Republican response if they are going to pick and choose their battles and not have hair on fire? What are the Republicans going to do?
I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Well, listen, I think Republicans are going to watch them lose again. I mean, listen, we saw every tactic employed in 2016 to try to stop President Trump. Scandal of the week, outrage of the hour, and those things didn't work. At the end of the day, the only way the Democratic Party wins is if it actually has a message for the American people. It can't be tariffs are bad, because we've had this whole month of the media saying tariffs are bad. Democrats, some Republicans saying tariffs are bad. It's going to hurt the economy. And what did we see in 1 month's time? We see inflation go down.
But it's not just the media saying and then reverse engineering a result, right? The markets are showing spiraling. They are having people concerned about their 401k. You're talking about pensions. You hear the influx of it. I mean, the quote in the poll you were talking about. There's a new Quinnipiac poll I want to put on the screen for people to see. Just 23% of voters say the state of the economy is excellent or good. So despite the idea that Republicans could feel confident about how people feel it, the numbers say something very different.
Listen, what the number that's most important is when Donald Trump took his oath of office, inflation rate was at 3.1%. Where is it today? It's at 2.8%. So it's moving in the right direction, which is what we've learned from the last election, that the most important number that matters is affordability and matters is inflation. It doesn't matter what the stock market looks like. It doesn't matter what unemployment looks like. The thing that people are feeling the most is affordability. And if you look at what's happened to gas prices, and if you look at what happened to eggs prices, which I was on this show, we were talking about it. Everybody on CNN was talking about egg prices. A month into his administration, egg prices are down from when he started.